welcome back to Summit Live. So excited to have 160 countries here with tens of thousands of people all over the world. But right now, one of my favorites of all the world is Nicholas. We are on the same team, and we've traveled around and had many good times and adventures together. So Nicholas, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ari. And it's been a pleasure, honestly. I've been super fortunate to work with Ari for the last 3 years. It's been a great time. Today is kind of an interesting talk. So we're going to be talking about how kind of things are going from Claude Code and Codex to kind of open source. We're going to talk about agent harnesses. And we're going to talk about kind of the entire system, not just the models. Now, to kind of kick us off, Ari, I have a question for you. And I love asking this to people. If you say just hello to a harness, let's say like Claude Code, if you were to guess how many tokens this request would go, and hello is roughly about 2 tokens.
Okay.
If you were to guess, and don't be shy, like how many tokens do you think Claude Code actually uses to answer hello?
6, 7. No, sorry. Bad joke. Maybe most of the world doesn't get that, but I don't know. Seriously, like maybe a dozen
Incredible.
or so.
So the actual answer is somewhere north of 30,000.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
At first, people might say, like, wow, that's shocking. Like, what's wrong with Claude Code? But, the classic saying that this is really a feature, not a bug, right? 2 of those were hello. The other 30,000 plus tokens are the harness. That includes things like the system prompt, the tools, memory, context, plugins. Everything that really makes Claude Code and Codex feel so magical compared to kind of the days when we were just using the raw models. And I'll kind of tell you a story of how I came to notice this. So in March of this year, I was super fortunate. I got to go to NVIDIA GTC.
Awesome.
I had
That's a big conference?
It's a pretty big conference. And I got the honor of waking up at 2:30 in the morning to go stand outside in line for 5 hours.
Wow.
Again, for the privilege of paying full price for a 5090, which for those of you that don't know what a 5090 is, it's the best consumer graphics card that you can kind of buy right now. So I'm all excited. I get home, I plug in my 5090, I boot up my inference machine, and at that time, I'd been using a lot of Claude Code. And so I pointed Claude Code at a Quen model, an open source model that fits on consumer hardware. All excited, I type hello, and I watch my inference server just ticking away and ticking away and ticking away. And finally, when it's done, it comes back and it says that request, and this was a few months ago, took 21,200 tokens.
Wow.
This was eye-opening to me for a few reasons. One, when you use the frontier models a lot, you kind of get a little spoiled. And we're very fortunate at Databricks. We do have access to the frontier models.
Yeah.
We're able to use these things at kind of full steam. However, local models, their context windows are much smaller, right? And so whereas you might have 1 million context window in an Opus, my local model at best had 100,000 tokens. And you don't even want to use all of those because generally the open source smaller models suffer a little bit more from what we call context rot, which is that their performance degrades the more that you fill that context window. So the reason this was so eye-opening to me was that I had just said hello, and I filled up 25% of my useful window.
Yeah.
Like, I have to kind of rethink how I think about these things.
And by the way, like that's just for you. Like one of the themes I hear as people are trying to scale up is multiply that by an organization that has 30 or 300 engineers. That is where it starts to add up real quick with money.
And so, yeah, exactly. And as kind of organizations are thinking like, okay, maybe we start looking towards these open source models, open harnesses, you have to really consider that it's really not just the model. There is so much to the harness that helps make it really a lot more useful to you. And a good analogy I've heard is that the model is actually just the engine, right? The harness is what makes the whole car. And really what that harness is doing is it's giving you the ability to really pull a lot more context and do it in a very structured way. So there's kind of a stack that we see emerging, right? Now at the top of it is context. Context is always king, right? It's what makes the models perform way better, right? If you go and you just tell a model, hey, tell me how to make a cookie, It doesn't even know what kind of cookie you want. So how do you expect it to give you a really high quality answer, right? Now, the trick is that getting the right context is not super simple. And that's where the harnesses have come and put a lot of time and effort. And that's why Claude Code and Codex feel so magical, because it, when you ask it something, knows where to reach things, where to kind of pull structured data from, how to pull it. And as we use these more, especially across enterprises, we're figuring out that we're doing a lot of the same workflows.
Right.
But if we never teach the model what those workflows are, then how do we expect it to actually do those reliably really well over time? Well, then the concept of skills kind of came about and became more abundant, right? And so now you can maybe figure out a workflow and save that as a skill, and I can share that with you. And now if you import that skill to your Claude Code, you have saved the maybe days of trial and error that I had to suffer through. You can now do the same thing in maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then you and I work well together. We've actually collaborated on really, really cool projects for another time, but then you have 3 people, then you have 50 people.
Right.
And that's where like that whole collaboration just becomes so much more important. And that's
nobody works in a silo, right? We all kind of work on teams, whether you're a small organization, a large one. We all rely on other people to kind of help, right? And so that ability to share skills and to kind of dictate workflows and help you learn from what I'm doing is another enormous part of the kind of harness system. And then there's also an idea of permissions, right? Mm-hmm. What can this model actually go and reach? So all of these together are how we're going from a model to a proper kind of harness, right?
Yeah. I have Databricks 1 on my mobile phone. I demo a lot. So without that security, I could say, what is your
What's my
RSUs,
salary
your
or
compensation?
something? Right.
So governance is key.
It is. Because you can imagine, right, especially if you're a large organization, it doesn't take a very big event of kind of spilling out information that you shouldn't for everyone to, put the brakes on everything. So
yeah, and context. One business term, Databricks, our fiscal year starts, February 1st?
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Other companies may not, but that's the context, and that's why it's so valuable to get accurate insights, for sure.
Exactly. Now, we talked a lot about harnesses. We talked a little bit about open models. But a lot of people then ask, okay, well, why would we use frontier models? Well, the answer is honestly, you still need them for a lot of things. They're incredibly useful. And so we're kind of seeing that there's different use cases for each. So, for example, if you have an open-ended problem, you're going to go research something, you don't know what the path is. The frontier models have a lot of smarts, right? And so they can actually go, they can do a lot of critical thinking, they can call a lot of things, keep a lot of context. Very, very useful when the path is not trotting, right? But when you have a really well laid out path, you might be able to get away with a much smaller open source model, which then goes to the next one, which is cost and scale, right? If you're doing the same thing over and over and over, then, and you want to scale that out, you might not need a frontier model. You might be better off with a very well-curated set of skills and tools. And then if you have a robust governance and a kind of evaluation stack, can figure out that, hey, you know what, if I swap this frontier model out with the slight open source model, our performance is almost the same, but our costs may go down 100-fold.
Yeah.
Now, governance is a little bit tougher, right? If you want to pull open source models, you have to deal with your own governance, unless you use something like Databricks' AI Gateway. Frontier models, they do a fantastic job of guaranteeing that enterprise level security. And then the last one is stability. So, this is probably not new to many people. Last week, very famously, there was a model that got pulled back.
Yes.
It makes you, if you're building your business on top of these things, it's a little bit kind of disconcerting to know that you're not in control of your whole stack. So if that is a very critical part of your enterprise, then you might be more willing to put the time and effort in to the open source models that you can own and guarantee how it gets deployed, what the uptime is, and be very stable and consistent.
And before you go on, this is like my favorite slide so far of the day. It's brilliant and simple. You helped come up with this. It's like
I have to give credit, right? So I didn't make these slides by hand, right? I also use an open source harness.
Oh, nice.
Right? And so now again, one of the beautiful things of how things have been evolving is that you can really use and leverage the work of others. So for example, if you all watching, you want to go and Google a GitHub repo, beautiful HTML slide templates. You'll find exactly the template that I use for these slides, and you can go ahead and make your own, plug it into your own harness, and make something similar to this.
Sweet, yeah.
It's been very satisfying. And so what I kind of want to like leave people with, like what should you be thinking about like from here going forward, right? The model, the harness, that's not really what's important to you and your company or your work, even if you're a solo entrepreneur. It's really the patterns, the workflows, the work that you're doing. That's what matters to you. Now, how you store and save all that information is really what's going to make the difference in how you're able to deploy that in the next 6 months, right? So if you are not storing anything, you don't have this nice kind of like harness that's all tied together, you are just kind of blasting away, and all of your knowledge and all of the work that you're doing is just kind of going off to the ether. It's going to be hard to compound on that. But if you have a platform or you have at least like some kind of rigid structure where you're storing things like all of your traces, you're storing all of your model calls, your prompts, what skills, what tools were used, then whatever this AI world evolves in the next 6 months, which none of us really know, you're going to be way better primed to use that knowledge, that workflow that you are etching as your company or your enterprise or even your solo person, and actually build on the next layer of AI that we all know is going to be ridiculously cool, but no one knows what it's going to actually be.
So harnesses and Databricks helps you future-proof as things will absolutely pop in and out of existence.
Exactly. And so for us, we're super fortunate. On the Databricks side, everything that we do at work, we run it through our own AI gateway. All of our traces, all of those kind of really important information that dictates what it is we're actually doing is all stored in Unity Catalog. So if in 6 months from now, I want to use an open source model, which we also host, by the way, and I want to replicate some of these patterns, I'm good to go. All of my data, all of my traces, everything, all that information is there. And so I'm primed for the future.
Well, awesome. Well, super, super duper cool. I think that's a wrap then. Any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, experiment, play, learn. Like that is the only way to really stay on top of these things. And to be honest, it's never been a more fun time to do that. So just get out there and try stuff.
Awesome. Well, Nicholas, thanks so much. And we're going to break to Allison in the room. Thank you.